So before, when we were talking about maintaining situational awareness and the things that we can do to always secure advantages before we're in combat, now we have to make a distinction. Now that we're discussing what happens when we're made defensive by a bogey that we didn't actually spot until it was too late, we need to realize that we are now defensive. This is a new game that we're playing. The situation was neutral before, nobody had spotted anybody else, but now that you're being assailed, you are defensive. That being said, what are my objectives? It seems pretty reasonably straightforward, right? Don't die. That's the first and biggest one, right? But we can get a little bit more specific than that. What I mean by that is that when we look at the syllabus of the T-45 strike program in the Navy, they prescribe some actual tangible objectives that we have now that we're being assailed. The first is defeat the initial weapons employment. So we got to defeat that first guns pass that's going to likely follow that being bounced. Then we need to maneuver to deny follow-on weapons engagement, right? So what's likely to happen is that you're going to defeat the first shot at you, the first bounce, and the assailant is likely going to use out-of-plane maneuvering. So he's going to zoom back up or do something out of plane because he's got too much energy to stay in plane with you, and he's going to come back down for a high yo-yo attack or something like that. So we need to defeat the follow-on shot. Then we need to neutralize the situation, so transition from a purely defensive situation back to a neutral. Typically that's going to be done by nose to nose. Anytime you're nose to nose with your opponent, you've neutralized the situation. Now he might still have a huge energy advantage, but at least the angular aspect advantage has been neutralized for the most part. So then after we neutralize the situation, we need to transition to high aspect BFM. That's going to be various ACM maneuvers that we can use to try to go from a now neutral position to an offensive position. That's going to be things like rolling scissors, flat scissors, or anything like that, lead turns, lag turns, high yo-yo, low yo-yo, anything that you can think of, you can use to try to turn the tides on your opponent. So those are our objectives. Now how do we complete those objectives, right? How can we do that? Well, now, upon first spotting an enemy with advantage coming in to assail you from behind or your rear quarter, we've entered a decision point, and we've got to make some decisions, and we've got to make them really quickly. The first thing we should consider is, can we extend away? Can I apply full war emergency power, put this target on my cold 6, and just rocket away from him to create separation, to buy myself time, to get out of his... Because remember, our first thing is to defeat the initial weapons employment, to defeat the first guns pass. Well, if I can stay out of his gun's range, even though he's trying to catch up and to assail me, then I've met my defensive objectives. Now, upon hearing this, a lot of people are going to say, "Oh, hey, I never run from an opponent. Having a bogey on my 6 is better than no bogey at all." And I get it. Okay, we're here to get kills. We're here to rack up points. We're here to get the dopamine spike of shooting somebody down. I totally get it. But you need to understand that now that you're being assailed by somebody in your rear 6, your situational awareness is gone. You don't have any, because somebody got through. And because somebody got through, there's a real reasonable chance that you also haven't spotted somebody else around you. And so if you turn back and enter a tangle with this guy who's assailing you, you're likely to get outgunned, outmatched, and get into a multi-plane engagement where it's 3 or 4 or 5 people on just you. So realize, take that humble pill, realize, oh man, my scanning wasn't great. I should probably extend at least long enough for me to get some support by some teammates, or to get a more accurate picture of the situation around me. Because maybe you extend for a little bit and, oh hey, okay, now I see his teammates. I see that there's 3 or 4 people, he's on comms, he's talking with a big wing. So maybe it wouldn't be the best idea for me to just blindly enter that fight the second that I see somebody on my 6. So take a second. If you can outrun, and then this goes back to situational awareness with aircraft capability, is extension going to be something you can always go to as your first option? No. And that's what I talk about. You got to make a decision, and you got to make it quick. You got to spot this guy, you got to figure out what aircraft he's in, and probably kind of make a decision about what altitude he's coming in from. Because what is his energy state? Is he coming in really fast, or is your closure rate really kind of small? Because if it's a small closure rate, now maybe we can extend. But if it's not, if he's coming with a ton of smash and you try to drag race him, you're going to lose. So we got to make that call early. If you can do it, do it. If you can't do it, now we got to move on to another decision. So the next thing that you have to ask yourself is, how much separation do I have right now in this exact millisecond, this exact moment? Because now I got to make a decision. Can I remove his angular advantage, right? Because he's 180 degrees tail aspect, right? He's right behind you. So can I remove that angular advantage right now this second? And what I mean by that is, can I do a maximum performance turn 180 degrees around and go nose to nose? Because as we stated before, And anytime you're nose to nose with your opponent, you're now neutral as far as angles advantages are concerned, and that's much better for us than him getting into our saddle, which is just rear six parked behind us, where we don't have any options. So do you have enough turning room? And again, you have to be careful with this because you can really mess this up. You have to judge, do you have enough turning room to get 180 degrees around towards him before, with all of his smash and his closure, he gets to you? Okay, so you have to realize how much room that you need. If you can do that, great. That should be your next move, because now you've taken away one of his advantages and you've thrown him off his game. Now, just to be clear here, we're talking about somebody cold 6. We're not talking about, a 60 degree or maybe even a 90 degree aspect attack from somebody that you haven't spotted. Then your situations may be different. Maybe you can't extend, the whole thing changes. We're talking about predominantly the worst case scenario, which is you didn't spot anybody until they were right behind you. So now we realize, oh man, he's coming in with a ton of closure. I probably can't extend away. I don't have enough altitude to put on speed. Maybe I'm in a slower airplane. And man, shucks, he's right behind me, and I don't think that I can turn all the way around and get nose to nose before he's in his guns range, which would be bad, okay? So what do we do now? So now we do the thing that all of these sources that I mentioned previously agree upon. The only option, this is the easiest part of the fight to be defensive, because there's really only one option. There's really only one thing you can do, and that's a break turn. That's going to be a maximum performance turn in plane. That's huge, okay? In plane towards your opponent. You're going to cut throttle, and you're going to try to collapse your turn radius to the smallest radius that you can have. Now, this is important. We're talking about radius and not rate. If you want to differentiate between those two things and understand the idea of turn performance, I recommend you go to the Air Combat tutorial library and you watch one of those most recently updated videos about turn circle, turning room, and performance. That is an excellent video to understand this stuff. We're not going to really cover that in depth. We're going to just kind of mention it, what you're trying to achieve, not how to do it, okay? So we're trying to maintain the smallest radius that we can because we're trying to create an overshoot. That's the number one goal of a break turn. We're trying to increase the closure rate and to provide angles in the gun sight of your opponent that he can't compensate for as quickly as we can. Now, ideally, you want to do this in a way that bleeds the least amount of energy for you as possible, because if I break the bank and I spend it all, great, that's fine. You defeated the initial weapons employment, congratulations. But now, you're low, you're slow, you don't have any options, and he's going to be, zooming up for a high yo-yo attack, and this next pass is going to be 10 times harder because you don't have any energy at all. So we want to do that first break turn with as little of an expenditure of energy as possible. Now, by all means, don't underdo it and get shot, okay? But we can try to keep in mind that maybe, you got to carefully watch the opponent as he comes and attacks you, just to stay just barely outside of what he can handle and no farther. If we just continue to haul back on that stick, it's only going to become a problem later on in a few seconds. Now, one thing that people do like to do to achieve this, to achieve a better expenditure of energy, a better efficiency in their break turn, is they like to play dumb. So let's say you spot somebody coming in on a high 6 bounce or even a low 6 cold bounce, and you realize like their closure is not that crazy. They're closing in, but it's not insane. What you can do is you can increase that closure kind of subtly by cracking your throttle a bit, reducing power, maybe putting in a flaps as long as you're not going to completely break them if you're outside the limitation of your flaps. But you can increase that closure subtly and then wait till just before they're going to shoot and then break turn. Because if we break too early, that's going to be a problem. That's going to be an easy solution. So we got to break at the proper time. Timing is everything when we talk about the break turn. Now, if you're a novice pilot, you're not really comfortable with the break turn, would not recommend playing dumb, waiting to the last possible moment, because the longer you wait, the later you break, the smaller the margins are for your success. The easier it's going to be for your opponent to actually go ahead and shoot you. So just keep in mind that is an option, to play dumb and to wait until the last possible second. But again, proceed with caution. Your mileage may vary. So now we've completed the first, let's say for example, we've completed the first break turn. We've defeated the initial guns pass, so we've met our first defensive objective, and now he's zoomed back up into a high yo-yo attack, for example, and we bought ourselves a little bit of time, but we're not out of the woods yet by any means, okay? So now we're at another decision point, another critical decision point in the fight. We've defeated the first guns pass, so now what do we do?